On July 28, 2025, a catastrophic flood swept through Miyun District, located in the northeastern part of Beijing, with the town of Taishitan bearing some of the most severe consequences. What began as relentless rainfall rapidly escalated into a full-scale emergency as the extreme weather overwhelmed both natural and man-made defense systems. At the heart of this disaster was the Miyun Reservoir, which had reached perilous water levels due to the intense precipitation, forcing a necessary discharge to mitigate structural risks. The subsequent downstream surge of water led to extensive flooding, significant property damage, and the evacuation of thousands of residents. The rainfall began to intensify on July 26 and persisted overnight into July 27. Over a period of several hours, rainfall totals exceeded 300 millimeters in many parts of the region. The Miyun Reservoir, one of the capital's most critical sources of drinking water, began to rise at an alarming rate. As its floodgates were opened, a massive volume of water was released into the downstream river systems, including the Chao River, the Bai River, and ultimately the Chou-Bai River. This surge of water directly impacted Miyun District,
Several days
as well as downstream districts such as
早晨眼睛一睁，黄河来看我了，熬夜跑不了了。
Hit areas was Taishitan, a town situated directly in the path of the downstream discharge. By the morning of July 28, Taishitan was submerged. On social media, residents began sharing harrowing videos that showed murky, brown water inundating residential neighborhoods near Yong'an Avenue. In many areas, the water had risen past the first story of buildings. Parked vehicles were seen floating away or being pushed down streets by the powerful currents. In the videos, residents could be heard crying out for help, stating that their cars had been washed away and that water was entering their homes faster than they could react. Local government officials confirmed that the flooding was not merely a result of the heavy rain, but was primarily caused by the deliberate, controlled discharge from the reservoir. Emergency response teams were on the scene even as the rain continued to fall, attempting to mitigate the damage and evacuate those in immediate danger. Despite their efforts, many neighborhoods were caught off guard by the speed and intensity of the deluge. The disaster response was further complicated by the continuous heavy rain on Monday, which hampered drainage and elevated the risk of further flash floods. Widespread power outages and communication disruptions were reported across the town. Public infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and drainage systems, sustained severe damage. Vehicles that were not moved in time were submerged or carried by the floodwaters through intersections. Meteorological experts warned that the heavy rainfall was likely to persist in the coming days. Lingering moisture from storm systems combined with atmospheric instability over northern China, created ripe conditions for subsequent storms. Authorities urged residents in flood-prone areas to remain vigilant and take precautionary measures. While Beijing struggled to manage the effects of the flooding and the controlled release from the Miyun Reservoir, the neighboring province of Hebei was in the grip of a similar crisis. Days of heavy and continuous rainfall had triggered widespread inundation in many parts of the province, causing extensive flooding and severely disrupting daily life in numerous counties and cities. Areas such as Baoding, Zhouzhou, and Yi County were among the most severely affected, with emergency declarations issued and thousands of residents forced to flee their homes.
好了，全他妈冲了。
Further flash flooding.
雨太大了，绕了半天，终于找到了一条路。现在也有人看着呢，目前还让。
Meteorological stations reported rainfall exceeding 530 millimeters in a short period, overwhelming drainage systems and leading to sudden flash floods that damaged roads, collapsed retaining walls, and washed away bridges. Residents recounted scenes of entire vehicles being swept away by the torrents and homes being filled with mud and debris in a matter of minutes. Emergency evacuations were carried out through the night, with many residents having only moments to gather a few belongings before fleeing to higher ground. In Zhouzhou, streets were transformed into rivers. The urban flooding submerged cars and buses, inundated shops and apartment complexes, and led to the closure of major transportation arteries. Numerous bridges were damaged or deemed unsafe, isolating some communities and complicating relief efforts. In nearby Yi County, recorded rainfall of over 450 millimeters forced the issuance of landslide warnings and the evacuation of several mountain villages.
Hold on.
坐标密云太师屯镇，水进小区了，车都冲跑了。
The unfolding crisis in Hebei, coupled with the events in Beijing, painted a grim picture of the rapid pace at which extreme weather can devastate both urban and rural landscapes. As China confronts increasingly frequent and intense rainfall events, the interconnectedness of its water management systems, urban planning, and emergency response capacity has become a more urgent concern than ever before. In the wake of the devastation, the focus is expected to shift from immediate response to long-term recovery and systemic reform. The sheer scale of the damage in both Beijing's periphery and Hebei province has highlighted critical vulnerabilities in existing infrastructure and crisis management protocols. The recovery process will be monumental, involving not only the rebuilding of homes, bridges, and roads, but also a fundamental rethinking of how the region prepares for such climate shocks. Experts and officials will undoubtedly call for significant investments in infrastructure infrastructure resilience. This includes upgrading the Miyun Reservoir's discharge mechanisms and predictive modeling to allow for more controlled, pre-emptive releases that minimize downstream impact. For urban centers like Taishitan and Zhozhou, the disaster underscores the urgent need to accelerate the implementation of sponge city initiatives, incorporating more permeable surfaces, green roofs, and high-capacity drainage channels to better absorb and manage torrential downpours. Furthermore, reinforcing river embankments and increasing the carrying capacity of the Chaobai River system will be crucial to prevent future overflows. Beyond physical infrastructure, the disaster serves as a stark reminder of the importance of robust early warning systems that are effectively communicated to the public, allowing for timely evacuations. The events of July 2025 will likely act as a catalyst for revised land use policies, potentially restricting new development in high-risk floodplains. Ultimately, adapting to this new reality of frequent, high-intensity weather events requires a multi-faceted approach, integrating advanced engineering, strategic urban planning, and community preparedness to build a more resilient future for northern China.